So many questions over why this kind of an escalation suddenly between Israel and Syria. How did Israel manage to strike Damascus with Syria having no idea that this was coming their way? And clearly, with Israel continuing to escalate the West Asia conflict, multiple conflicts essentially that we're talking about now, what does this really mean for the region? I want to bring in Sandeep Unithan to talk about why we've seen this escalation right now. Sandeep, what explains Israel suddenly going ahead with this kind of an unprecedented massive strike?
Well, there have been clashes of late in the south of Syria where the Bedouins have been clashing with the Druze minority, and Israel has said that they have struck at Syria for those clashes where over 200 people were killed. The Druze are a minority, they're very pro-Israel. You have a Druze community that's in Israel as well. These are the most significant attacks on Syria since the fall of the Bashar al-Assad government in December of 2024. And it points to the fact that today Israel has unparalleled air superiority over the entire Middle East, from the Mediterranean right up to the Arabian Sea.
Sandeep, just stay with me. Let's cut across also to reactions coming in. America has now reacted to the Israeli fresh strikes on Syria. Let's get you that news break. So America has actually referred to this as a misunderstanding between Syria and Israel. The US Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, has called the situation complicated, but has also confirmed that America is in touch with both Israel as well as Syria. America will be looking to kind of ensure that there's de-escalation, which is why the US Secretary of State is confirming that currently there's a conversation underway with both Syria and Israel. Rubio is highlighting that they hope to see progress in the next few hours, because the concern is that with this kind of a strike, this could be just the beginning by Israel. And that's something Israel has spoken of about as well, saying that they should be ready to suffer more such blows, that Syria should be ready to suffer more such blows. And that's what's got the world concerned right now. But listen to what the US Secretary of State said.
Working on that issue as we speak. I just got off the phone with the relevant parties. We're very concerned about it. And hopefully we'll have some updates later today for you. But we're very concerned about it. We want it to stop.
Thank you for joining.
I'm sorry. We want the fighting to stop, because we had a ceasefire overnight. It broke down again. So we're talking to both sides, all the relevant sides on this, and hopefully we can bring it to a conclusion. But we're very concerned.
Okay, let me bring in Pranay Upadhyay of India Today Global for more details. So on this, Pranay, how's the world seeing what's happened between Israel and Syria and this massive escalation in another conflict essentially that's playing out in West Asia? Look, the question right now will be about how Israel feels emboldened to go ahead with these strikes in different parts, different regions, different countries, all of course their neighbors in different ways. But there are serious questions being asked about how Israel is getting away with these kind of strikes repeatedly.
As Sandeep was also referring, Akshita, Israel currently is having a superiority in air domination in the entire region. Israel has that kind of a capacity, and that's why, the fault lines of this tension has always remained in this region, especially the Golan Heights, the southern part of Syria, which is being struck by Israeli Air Force. And in fact, the Damascus area, which is the capital of Syria, is being struck by the Israeli Air Force. This clearly is a message from Tel Aviv to Syrian regime, to Syrian government, that it is a no-go area for them, especially as far as the Druze community is concerned. This is a community which Israel thinks is their friend of Israel. They are present in Israel as well. They are in the security forces of Israel. In fact, the Shin Bet and the Israeli Defense Forces. So this is a reason why Israel is carrying out these attacks. But you heard Secretary Marco Rubio clearly stating that US is looking at with a concern on this area in this region, because US was the one who actually orchestrated or helped the transition of government in Syria after the departure of Bashar al-Assad regime, and instated the Mohammed al-Shara's regime there. The HTS came to power. So if that get destabilized, the entire scheme of things which US thought that would be there in place to save and to secure the interest of Israel as well. And that's why Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu clearly said after the regime change, Akshita, that Israel will protect the southern borders, the Israel will protect every interest until the time they are assured that there will not be any attack. They are going to maintain their domination in the region.
Also, Pranay, at this point, looking at the warnings that are coming in from Israel, is there a concern that this could escalate further? How has Syria really responded? Look, Syria is on its knees right now. Let's be very, very clear. And perhaps in no situation right now to respond militarily to Israel, especially looking at the might of the Israeli military. But having said that, how has Syria really reacted or viewed this particular incident of the strike?
Akshita, Syria doesn't have that capacity to retaliate to Israeli airstrikes. So therefore, they might have reached to United States, and United States or the Trump administration will reach out to Israel and try and contain the Israeli airstrikes in the region. But clearly, this has to do with the regional and ethnic equations of Syria. There, the Druze community and the Bedouin community in the ethnic clashes which erupted on Friday, and it has risen the death toll to almost 240 or 250 almost. And that was the reason, that was the immediate trigger. And that's why I think the Mohammed al-Shara, because he might have reached to the US administration. And that's why Secretary Marco Rubio has stated that they are not only concerned, but they are talking to both the parties. They're trying to de-escalate the situation. So as far as the Syrian regime or Syrian government is concerned, the only leverage they have is their contact with the United States.
Okay, all right, Pranay, thanks very much for getting us all of those details. Pranay Upadhyay rounding up for us all the updates of the world reactions that are coming in. Just look at the footage on your screens. So when the blast occurred, there were multiple reporters there who were covering and talking about tensions, and then suddenly these explosions rocking the military headquarters, what is considered to be one of the most protected units, protected buildings in Syria or in any country in the world. Why did this happen? We've been talking repeatedly of the Druze community and the fact that it's because of this community that Israel has actually struck Syria, has actually struck their military headquarters, and a clear warning to be issued to them. Let's tell you about this community. It's an Arab-speaking ethnic minority group. They mainly reside in parts of Lebanon, parts of Syria, particularly southern Syria, as well as Israel. This is a group that broke from the Shia Islam in the 10th, 12th century, but it incorporates aspects of Hinduism, of Judaism and Christianity, and they have very close ties with Israel. How is that? Well, of the Druze community, about 120,000 plus are actually Israeli citizens. They serve in the IDF. The IDF is the Israeli Defense Forces. They serve in police, they serve in politics. So they play an integral role in the functioning of Israel. Now, the Druze community, and they're referred to as the Druze people. So the Druze in Israel mostly live in Galilee, in Carmel, and in Golan Heights. The Golan Heights is the most disputed part, essentially, between Syria and Israel. So Israel feels a need to essentially protect the Druze, especially those who are in Syria. They consider them to be almost family-like kin. And that's why Israel often acts to protect the Druze abroad as well. In this particular case, Israel believed that there was a threat to the Druze community because of the fact that there's been, of course, a whole lot of tension and unrest in southern Syria, which is where the Druze community is based. The Druze has been involved in a lot of activity to actually ensure anti-government activity, if you will, for the overthrow of the government in Syria. And that's why Syrian forces have been targeting the Druze community, against which Israel had warned Syria. Syria didn't heed that warning, so they went ahead with that strike. Let me bring in Sandeep Punithan once again on this broadcast. Sandeep, the question also that's being asked is how Israel pulled off this kind of a strike. We've been seeing multiple such incidents of escalation of strikes by Israel, not just in Syria, but in different parts of this region. How is it that Israel is managing to pull off these kind of strikes with no intimation and none of these countries ever seeing that this kind of a strike is coming?
Well, the footage suggests that these were air-to-ground munitions that were used, and this is not the first time that Israel has struck inside Syria. After the fall of the Bashar al-Assad government, you saw this very unprecedented sight of Israeli warplanes destroying what was left of the Syrian Navy, what was left of the Syrian Air Force. All of those strategic assets that could be used by the incoming government of Ahmed al-Shara were destroyed. So today Syria is a country without an air force, without a navy, without much means to defend itself. And all of this has been made possible by Israel and its heavy investment in the Air Force. Israel has one of the most powerful air forces in the world. We saw that recently in the conflict with Iran when Israeli warplanes flew the distance that would normally take an aircraft to fly between Bombay, Delhi and back. That is the kind of regular sorties that they were flying to attack Iranian targets and flying back. Today they can fly any point, like I mentioned, across West Asia from the Mediterranean to the Arabian Sea. There's no one challenging them. They can strike targets at will, and clearly what we've just seen in Syria is that particular state of play, that military state of play on the ground. It's the most significant point in the Middle East since at least the 1967 Six-Day War between the Arab countries and Israel. Akshita.
You're right. You know, we're seeing this unprecedented escalation right now between Israel and Syria. That footage that you see right now on your screens, that's the military headquarters, and this military compound was very, very close to the Syrian presidential palace. So you look at the messaging Israel is sending across. This is the capital of Syria, Damascus. All of the vehicles you see there, all scurrying, not knowing which direction to go in, just because of the sheer magnitude of those strikes. That entire building blown to bits, nothing left but rubble now. But we still don't really have any sort of estimate on casualties. But let's address the question of why Israel intervened. What led to this sudden strike on Syria? Well, essentially, Israel is committed to protecting the Druze in Syria, like I told you. So what we have explained there for you in the map, you can see Israel there on the extreme left, but the area that we've shaded in purple, that's where the Druze are currently. This is in southern Syria. So while they are there in places like Dara, that's where you see a lot of conflicts taking place. There's about 120,000 Druze who live in northern Israel, and then there are many of them as a minority who live in Syria as well. So in southern Syria, there is in fact a whole lot of conflict that's broken out in that area. Now, because of that, particularly in Golan Heights, which is a UN buffer zone, you've had, after the Assad regime's fall in December, Israeli forces also deployed there. So there's been already a conflict in that, and as a result of the same, from Syria, the Syrian forces have actively been fighting it off with, in fact, the Druze in that southern Syria area. Israel warned them against it. The strikes and in fact the clashes continued, which is why Israel from their territory flown all the way to Damascus and hit Damascus where it hurts the most. And Syria already is a nation that's facing a whole lot of turmoil, conflict and whatnot. So they can't afford any sort of response. But Pranay, looking at the footage really of that explosion, of that strike, it's clear the messaging involved by Israel. But as a result of that happening, do we have any details of casualties right now?
So far, the casualty figure from Damascus has not come, Akshita, but clearly you can make out from the visuals that what kind of destruction has been caused by the Israeli defense forces and their strikes in Damascus. This is a clear message, message of deterrence from Tel Aviv delivered in Damascus, that if you move further, because what is the immediate trigger? Why did Israel started striking in Damascus? Because the Syrian military forces, Syrian forces were advancing in the Soweto area, which is the Druze area, and where there the ethnic clashes between Bedouin community and the Druze community erupted on Friday, and which actually took the toll to around 248 people in that region. And that ethnic clashes were still continuing, and that's why the Syrian regime, Syrian government has moved their security forces, and Israel started carrying out to deter those advancement in that region, because clearly that is a kind of a message. Israel Israel doesn't want the Syrian military forces to be deployed in the Golan Heights area. And if you recall, Akshita, that post-December 2024, post the regime change in Damascus, Israel has always maintained that they are going to dominate that region, and they are going to keep their military presence. There has been a military advancement from the Israeli side in the Syrian territory to maintain, to keep that buffer, and that is the reason why Israel is not only protecting the Druze community, but they are also taking it to Damascus to give out this message. But seriously, this actually raises the concern in that entire region. region, because Golan Heights is an area where the UN peacekeeping force is there, Akshita,
Correct.
and even Indian troops are there. Indian Army, contributing to the UN peacekeeping force, has its presence in the Golan Heights area.
Okay, so let's hope there's no escalation. You can never really say, looking at what's been happening in West Asia for the last many months. Israel, Iran, Israel, Palestine, Israel, Gaza, Israel, Syria. The list is long, and let's hope that there's some stability that gets into the region. Of course, a whole lot of it will be crucial on what America does in the next steps of talking and having dialogue with Syria and Israel. Thanks very much, Pranay, for joining us with those details. Let's hope that we don't get more footage of this sort of more strikes, more casualties as a result of conflict and the conflict that's escalating in West Asia. These are the strikes that Israel has conducted on a military compound in Damascus of Syria. All right, let's move on and get your footage that's come in from America, which has been seeing absolutely crazy weather in the last few weeks, from unpredictable storms to a heat wave to sometimes also this flash floods, northeastern America. You're seeing essentially the impact being felt there. Life coming to a standstill for residents of New York and particularly New Jersey. A state of emergency has been issued. There are flash flood warnings that have been issued all across New York. In New Jersey too, the situation is worrying. We've been reporting for you on the situation in Texas too, where there continue to be flash flood warnings.
Subway platforms submerged, leaving commuters stranded. Trains and buses delayed. Flights halted. Life in the city that never sleeps came to a halt during late hours of Monday. Torrential rains battered several cities in America's northeast. New York and New Jersey were among the worst hit. Governor Phil Murphy declared emergency in the state of New Jersey due to flash flooding and heavy rainfall. 2 people lost their lives as rain swept their car away in New Jersey. Citizens were advised to stay indoors and avoid unnecessary travel. The National Weather Service of the U.S. issued flash flood warnings across all 5 boroughs of New York City. The city's emergency management department appealed people residing in basement apartments or low-lying regions to be ready to be evacuated. Meanwhile, the aviation sector is taking a big blow as over 1,900 flights were cancelled and over 10,000 flights were delayed across America. Bureau Report, India Today.
That's all we have time for in this edition of NewsTrack. Thanks very much for tuning in. I'm leaving you with heartwarming images of Group Captain Shubhanshu Shukla. He's back on Earth after that successful splashdown. But just look at those wonderful images. After 2 long months, he's got an opportunity to finally hug his family, his wife, as well as his 4-year-old son. And Group Captain Shukla says it's magical in space, but it's a whole lot more magical with family. Enjoy these images. Absolutely heartwarming to see him back with his family. Thanks for watching. Good night.